Hello and welcome back to London Cycle Routes. Today I'll be showing you how to cycle from Waterloo Station in South Central London to Liverpool Street Station in East Central London. This ride takes about 15 to 20 minutes and you can do the whole thing on quiet streets and protected cycle lanes. It also just got a lot easier because the city has closed Threadneedle Street to cars. By public transport, the same journey takes around 20 minutes, so you can certainly save time by making this trip on your bike. If you find this video useful or you just enjoy watching it, then please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, as I try to post new videos just like it every week. I'd also like to say a huge thank you to everybody who supports the channel on Patreon. If you'd like to contribute too, then you can find a link in the description below the video. Alright, let's get going. So we're starting on the Waterloo Road entrance to Waterloo Station and we're going to head up Sandell Street just past Waterloo East Station. The streets around here are really quiet thanks to interventions like these bollards which prevent through traffic from using them. As a result, they make a nice cycle link to get up to the Thames. One thing I particularly like is the way in which this space on the right has been repurposed to provide a bit more seating for the pub there outside. Lambeth Council, which runs the streets around here, is also planning to make some further changes, including closing this junction here to through traffic. They're also planning to add in extra greenery and seating around there, which should make it even more pleasant to ride through. Those changes should be in by the end of the year. We now turn right onto Upper Ground. This street has also recently had traffic filters installed on it, which has removed through traffic and made it a lot quieter than it used to be. However, it's not perfect. At the moment there are a couple of very large construction sites on it, so you can see quite a bit of construction and delivery traffic at certain times of day. The surface also leaves a lot to be desired, and there's also quite a lot of illegal parking and loading on pavements at certain points, particularly places like here and also outside the hotel further up, which just kind of makes the carriageway a bit narrower and slightly less pleasant to ride down. You might notice that this street is quite curvy and has a lot of twists and turns on it. That's actually because Upper Ground is one of the oldest streets in this part of London and it used to be a country lane, so it kind of has the geography of one. The new buildings follow that route, which was laid down in the Norman period. Now we have a cycle lane in this direction, but the junction layout is a bit confusing. There's no traffic light preventing us from making that turn at any time we like, but sometimes you're in conflict with the pedestrian crossing over the road there, so do just be careful and make sure that you give pedestrians priority when they're crossing the road. On Blackfriars Bridge now we have a really nice two-way wide protected cycle track, which takes us over the river. At both ends of the bridge there are counter-terrorism barriers which you will need to be a little bit careful to cycle through, as the gap left is not particularly wide. There are also 3 sets of traffic lights on the bike lane here in very quick succession, which sometimes feel like overkill, and this one especially can take a little while to change. I do think that 1 or 2 of those could probably be replaced with a zebra crossing over the cycle lane, which would give pedestrians priority at all times, because often you're just waiting at an empty junction there and a lot of people just run the lights anyway. Now we wanted to go right off Blackfriars Bridge and you may notice that we turned left. That's because we need to make a hairpin turn to go east. And do make sure that you pay attention to that 4th traffic light just there, as cars will be coming from behind you to access that slip road on the left, so you really don't want to go when it's red. On this next section of the route we're just travelling along Cycleway 3, which is this brilliant two-way protected cycle track which basically runs along the River Thames, including for this part through the Blackfriars underpass. Remember that there are 2 different sets of traffic lights here. The one on the left is the one that we want to follow for the bike lane. The one on the right is for traffic travelling in the general traffic lane. One of the points of this video is to show off the newly redesigned Bank Junction, which the City of London has been working on for the last sort of year or 2 and has finally more or less finished. It's really good, and one thing I really like about it is that it creates a brilliant connection from Cycleway 3, which has been around for a few years, up into more parts of the City of London, which was quite a difficult thing to do before. It's really great, and I'll show it to you in a couple of minutes when we get there, including Threadneedle Street, which I mentioned at the beginning, which has been completely closed to traffic and is bikes and pedestrians only. This cycleway goes all the way east to Canary Wharf, but we're not on it for that long. If you need to remember where to turn off left, it's at the turning which is opposite the entrance to Southwark Bridge. If you went right here, you'd go to Southwark Bridge, and we want to go left up Queen Street. If you pass Southwark Bridge, you've gone too far. Queen Street is relatively quiet and doesn't go anywhere, although it does see quite a bit of loading activity. At the end there is what we call a toucan crossing, which is a pedestrian crossing which also has a bicycle light for it, showing that we can also cross when we're riding a bike without having to dismount. There's then another crossing which leads us out onto Queen Victoria Street. Now they were still tidying up a lot of the construction site here, so there are some temporary barriers and building materials left on the road, but generally this street is really quiet. What the city has done is they've banned basically almost everything except buses and bikes through the middle of Bank Junction, although there are still some routes left for taxis. The result is that what was one of the worst junctions in London is now almost entirely traffic free, including this Threadneedle Street here, which is completely motor traffic free, and for anyone who remembers it, it's been a huge transformation. I really like the awnings that they've put on the building on the right here, and I imagine that when this is all finished, it's probably going to become quite a popular place for people to sit out and have something to eat or a coffee. There are still more public realm improvements to come, including on Old Broad Street here. One thing that makes the Bank Junction scheme so great is that it hasn't just quietened down Bank Junction, it's also meant that the streets around it, like this one, have much less through traffic on them because there are no through routes through the area, although there is still quite a bit of illegal parking and loading going on the double yellow lines on the left there. Overall though, the effect is great and there's very little in the way of cars that you have to deal with, as most of the traffic is sticking to the main routes like London Wall, which we're crossing here. This second section of Old Broad Street is also access only for motor vehicles apart from buses and bikes, so it's also super quiet, and it takes us right to the front of Liverpool Street station on Liverpool Street, which is traffic free too. And so we've made it. It took us about 15 to 20 minutes. It's a really easy ride, I reckon anyone could do it, and it's now a great option to change trains between Waterloo and Liverpool Street. This is a route that a lot of people have requested on the channel before, but I've been waiting for Bank Junction to be done before I did it because it was such a barrier to getting through between those two stations, but it's made such a difference and I really like what they've done with Bank. If I had any criticism of that scheme, I'd say that they've done such a good job in reducing the traffic through the junction that actually they could have been a bit more radical with reclaiming the road space, as it's still quite a large open junction, but there's very little traffic actually passing through it, and they probably could have just given a lot more of that to pedestrians and created a bit more of a public square. Do let me know in the comments what you think of that though. I am interested if anyone's been down there and has their own thoughts. As always, if you enjoyed the video and you want to see more like it, do make sure that you hit the subscribe button on the channel. I post videos pretty much every week. And also, thanks again to everyone on the Patreon, including new subscribers. You're all brilliant. And if anybody else would like to contribute, then you can find a link in the description below the video. Do make sure that you download the map of the route if you need it. It's available, also linked in the description. And make sure you check out the map of all the different London cycle routes to help you find which videos might be most useful for you. That's also linked down there as well. And thanks to Isaac for keeping that one up. I'll see you guys all again next time. Goodbye.